Hello, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Welcome to part 24 of a 95-part series of tutorials in object-oriented programming in C++, in which we are going to continue looking at the implementation of objects and classes, with our attention or our focus being on static objects. My name is Mema JM, or you can simply call me Emily Swap. A static object is any instance of an object that is created without the use of new operator. However, you can still make use of the reserved word static to the declaration. An object of a class occupies the same amount of memory as a variable of a structure that has the same data members. Once an instance of a class is created, memory is allocated for it, and this memory remains throughout to the end of the program. The following is therefore an example of a program illustrating creation and use of static object called yourname, and it prompts the user for the first name that is read and displayed as a string through a method called getDisplayName. In other words, my dear students and the rest of the learners, when you are writing a program in C++, more so in object-oriented programming, whenever you declare any variable or a member of a class, if you don't precede that variable declaration with the term new, it simply means that whatever object or whatever variable that you have declared is static, meaning that the content of that memory location remains unchanged. Or in other words, it simply means that once you request the compiler to set a memory location for a certain type of information, that memory location remains until the end of that program or until you exit from the program. And we are saying that ordinarily, whenever you declare a variable or an object, and you want still to indicate to the reader that for sure that is a static object or variable, we are saying that you can precede it with the term static. However, even if you don't use the reserved word static preceding the object or instance or member or variable that you are declaring, that will still be a static object. That's very important, which means that most of the programs that you have been writing in C++, in object-oriented programming or in the C++ series, all of them were making use of static objects, static instances, static variables, or static structures for as long as you never presented them with the reserved word new, and you didn't delete that object during execution of the program, as we learned in presentation part 23 of this series. So let's see how we use the reserved word static, meaning that what we have in our program are static objects using the following program. So my program, I'm going to call it static objects. Of course, we have the preprocessor directive outstream. We have the preprocessor directive string because this program is going to be making use of a series of a sequence of characters. And those functions that can be able to manipulate a series of characters is usually the header file called string. Then, of course, we have our usual using namespace std. And then we have our class, and the name of our class for this program is name. That is the class tag name. The members or the private members of this class are first name, which will be of type string. That is a data member. Then we have public members. And the public members in this program is get display name function, which has been prototyped. And of course, it is void, meaning that this function is not expected to return any value. Remember that the functions within a class have a special name, which we call method. And that is the end of that class definition. However, as you can see, we have just prototyped the function get display name, and therefore we expect that the definition for that function will be somewhere either after the class or after the main program. So we have our main program or our main function, and within our main function, we are beginning with the declaration of an instance that will be being used to manipulate the members of our class. And in this case, this instance, we are calling our instance your name. So your name is of type name, meaning the class. And this object is static. It is static. You can see we precede the declaration with the reserved word static, then followed by the variable or object type, which in this case is the class, and the class is called name, and then the object name or the instance is your name. And then we have our next statement here, which is for invoking a function or a member. This member is called get display name, and this member, of course, is going to be accessed through the object or the instance for the class called your name. So because this get display name is being invoked through the object called your name, of course, it means that this function will only work or will only manipulate the members of the class for this object, which is name. And then once that is done, we return back the control of the operating system and end the program. After that, we have the definition now for our function or our method that we had prototyped in the class declaration or under the class definition. So our function here is get display name. My dear students and the rest of the learners, kindly note that if you have to define a function or a method outside of the class in which it belongs, we must make use of scope resolution operator, and those are the two double colon symbols that you can see. And then what does that mean? It simply tells the compiler that get display name is a method whose scope is the class called name. And this function, of course, is of type void, meaning that it's not expected to return any value back to the caller or back to the main program. So what is this function going to do? It is going to display the message on the screen. What is your name? Once that is done, the user will, of course, key in a certain series of characters, and those will be read through first name, And remember, first name is a data member of our class. And therefore, because the function called get display name is a member of the class called name, then it simply means that once the user keys in the first name or whatever data that he or she will enter, it will be directly stored in the member in which the function or in the class in which the function get display name is part of, because it is get display name that can have direct access to the data member or data members for the class, and therefore get display name function will have direct access to the data member called first name. And once that is keyed in, the next work or function for this function or row of this function will be to display the message on the screen. Thanks. Your name is the function or compiler will pick whatever is stored in the data member on the first name and display it out on the screen. And of course, the one or new line operator will move the cursor one line below this statement. And that will be the end of that function. So the following is a demonstration on how this program can be coded in C++ and the output it gives after compilation and execution. So in other words, my dear students and the rest of the learners, I want to demonstrate to you how this program will behave in C++. It's my expectation that you are also going to code this program or copy this program in your exercise book or in an editor program or a word processor program like Microsoft Word or Notepad or WordPad, and then go through each of these statements to ensure that the syntax is okay. And then once you do that, you can then paste your program in the C++ editor or IDE. And therefore, for my case, I'm going to copy this program and paste it into my editor for Visual Studio C++ 2010. If you're having any other version of C++, just load it. And once you load that program and your editor is ready for the new program, you can also proceed and type these statements into it. And then we are going to compile it and execute it to see how the program will behave. So let me load my C++ program. So I'm going to load my C++ program. Here it is. Remember the process I'm following is for C++ 2010 Express. If you're using another version, you can follow a different procedure. What is important for you to load your program and ensure that the editor is ready. Now, the name of my project will be static objects. If you go through the series of C++ programs in the series of presentations that have been posted in the MLSWAP ICT YouTube channel for C++ programming, you'll be able to remember these steps very well because they were fast or they were part of my very first presentations for the C++ tutorials and also for the object-oriented programming in C++. So the name of my program is static objects. Now, once my editor is ready, I'm going to copy my program because I already have my program coded in a word processor here. So this is my program. If you have coded this program in your word processor or any other editor, you can follow the same procedure. But if you have not copied this program in an editor, you can still type it directly on your IDE or integrated development environment. Let me copy my program here. So that's my program, the one that I've already explained to you. Once your program, or once you have written your program, you can then save it. Then I'm going to compile my program, and remember compiling the program in Visual Studio, Visual C++ 1010 Express. You click on Build, and then you click on Build Solution. And there we go. My program has been compiled, and you can see it has no errors. Anytime you're compiling a program in C++ and your program generates an error or a syntax error, you will always get a message telling you that compilation was not successful, and therefore you're supposed to debug it. For you to remember or to know how to debug, kindly go through the series of tutorials in object-oriented programming series that has been posted in the Microsoft ICT YouTube channel, or listen to the series of presentations on structured programming, or simply on programming using C++ that is already posted in Microsoft ICT YouTube channel. Remember, in Microsoft ICT YouTube channel, we have a series of tutorials. We have series in object-oriented programming in C++, the one which we are still proceeding with. We also have another series of programming that has been taught there, and that is structured programming using C and Pascal. And there's also a series of presentations on programming using C++. So for us, for you to have the basics on programming in C++, go through that series of C++ or programming in C++. And once you're done, you can graduate to object-oriented programming, which is the series that you are continuing with. And once you have learned or you have known how to write your normal programs in C++, then transiting to object-oriented programming tutorials will become very easy for you. Now I have compiled my program and it's successful. Let me now execute it. And of course, in Visual Studio 2010 or C++ 2010, you click on debug and then start without debugging because my program has no errors. But if it has errors, you are expected to debug. Now you can see already that my program is displaying this message here. So already the function or the member of class method in the class called getDisplay is the one which is being executed now. And the statement is, what is your first name? So my first name is Meme, or I can call myself Emily Swap. Then once I press enter, you can see just as it's outlined in the definition for getDisplayName function, you can see that the output is being given. Thanks, your name is Emily Swap. And you can see that after entering the input for first name, there is a blank space before thanks. That blank space has been generated by this new line operator, which is under the cout \n thanks. Remember, \n, that is referred to as a single character in C++, or a single operator. And this single operator is called the new line operator. So it is creating a new line or an empty line before thanks, and your name is, then the program or the compiler is picking whatever's been stored in the member for the first name and writing it out on the screen. That's how our program is going or is behaving. And of course, I believe, my dear students, the rest of the learners, that you have seen how we make use of the reserved one static. And remember, I have said, you can, in programming, even if you avoid this reserved one static, still this object that you have created will be static, meaning the memory reserved for it will remain for as long as the program is in execution. But once the execution is over, that memory that has been set aside for this object is usually disposed automatically. But the content of this memory and the memory that has been reserved remains for as long as the program or the session is in progress. But for us to be able to identify the objects clearly that are static, we use the reserved one static. And especially in situations where you may also want to reserve some memory as static and others as dynamic. And to remind you on how to create dynamic objects, on how to create or make use of dynamic memory, or what we call free store, kindly go through part 23 of this series in which we talked about free stores or dynamic objects. So that's all with our program. That's all with our program. And now we can continue, and you have seen how we do it. So with that, my dear students and the rest of the learners, we have come to the end of part 24 of the 95 part series. You can continue to part 25, in which we are going to learn about how to make use of what we call the implicit pointer or this pointer in implementation of objects and classes. Congratulations for learning part 24 of 95 on static objects in implementation of objects and classes in object-oriented programming. You can access videos for the other parts in object-oriented programming series, as well as other computer or ICT videos by clicking or tapping on EmeriSwap ICT YouTube channel below this video. Remember to subscribe to the channel by tapping on subscribe button below this video in YouTube if it's not currently reading as subscribed. Remember, you can also join EmeriSwap ICT YouTube channel as a special member by clicking on the join button and then doing your subscription. For any further correspondence, kindly write it to us through the email emiliswap@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening to me, and God bless.